IVC, Dark Dove back with you again with another video update. A lot to show. A lot of stuff I'm going to show now is stuff which is going back to before Christmas, which I just haven't got around to showing yet. So don't want the video to run on too long. So straight away I'll start off with a Discogs purchase, which I got with the proceeds of another item which I sold online. This is something that was on my want list for a long time. This is In a Wild Sanctuary by Beaver and Krause. Paul Beaver and Bernie Krause. This was released in 1970 on Warner Brothers. So Beaver and Krause were early pioneers of the Moog synthesizer. They actually were salesmen of the Moog itself. They worked for Moog, and they were instrumental in introducing it to the likes of the Beatles, the Doors, the Who. This is an album which they recorded several albums in the late 60s, early 70s. This one, by the way, that artwork on the cover, that is by MC Escher, one of my favourite graphic artists. In some ways, this kind of reminds me a little bit of some of Boards of Canada's stuff. There's all these samples of field recordings, samples of children playing, samples of animals they recorded. They went around with a tape recorder to places like the zoo. A lot of sounds of nature mixed in with the Moog. Spaced is the most well-known track and the best track on this, I think. There's not just Moog, there's also Hammond organ, percussion, and a variety of instruments, but it is kind of instrumental as an early electronic album. So as far as I know, it was only released in the US, so I bought it from a UK seller, so been on my want list for a long time. Now, next item, also an internet purchase, which some of the proceeds of the item that I sold went towards this as well. This is by Coil, and this is Backwards. Now, it is a new release which came out at the end of 2015, but it's actually of an album which was recorded between 1992 to 1996. Some of the songs on this have turned up on other albums, but this has been in the archives for 20 years and has only now seen a release. So it's a double album. Anyone who's familiar with Coil will know that the Peter Sleazy Christopherson and John Balance, the two main members of Coil, both of whom are deceased. So the Coil back catalogue has been kind of languishing. A lot of their albums are they haven't been reissued in years. Originals are very, very pricey. Loads of bootlegs. So hopefully this will see the reissue of their back catalogue. But I have very little Coil on vinyl because it's so damn expensive. But this is an excellent album. This is, if you like kind of dark electronica, industrial kind of music, this is the thing for you. Speaking of kind of dark electronica, next item is something I got by means of a trade-in. My local independent record record store had this in their second-hand section. So I brought in some items which I was planning on getting rid of anyway, some CDs and some vinyl. I did a trade-in, plus I got some extra credit as well, some cash on top of it, but it's Aphex Twin, I Care Because You Do, third album from 1995, and this is an original pressing, double album. So kind of freaky artwork. Yeah, so this it's kind of broken into the big time, I think. It wouldn't be as good as his previous one. Ambient Works from '92, but yeah, I pretty much like everything Aphex Twin has done under his various guises, so I'm very pleased to get an original copy of that in my hands. Next up is something which now Kevin Dr. Strangely Strange showed something. Now it wasn't this actual album, but it's this band's Inner City Unit, who were a side project of Nick Turner of Hawkwind. Now Kevin, you did show another album by Inner City Unit some time back, and I wouldn't actually have known about them if it wasn't for that, but I did spot this. I got this for €5. This is from, I think this is their second album, possibly their second, I'm not 100% sure. It's from 1981. Yeah, so Nick Turner of Hawkwind is involved, and I think the best way to describe it is kind of Hawkwind go punk, or kind of space punk, I suppose. Really like this, the long spacey tracks, the Bones of Elvis, it's a great track. Yeah, really liked it. It is kind of punk or post-punk influence, but it is still very much in the kind of spirit of Hawkwind. Next up, another thing which I had on my want list for a long time, and I'm getting close to completing this band's back catalogue now. That is Talking Heads, Remain in Light. Bobby Gass, you're a big fan. You know, this album is not rare by any means, but anytime I've seen it for sale, it's always been overpriced. It's 1, 2, 3. This is the fourth album, I think, and it's the second one they did with Brian Eno as part. They did that trilogy of albums that ended with Remain in Light. So this came out in '79. Has a really interesting kind of embossed sleeve, which looks kind of like a those metal floors that you get in factories. Has this really kind of creepy picture in the inner. I don't know. Is that actually David Byrne when it's some kind of kind of weird modified kind of a picture of him? Like those fairground mirrors that kind of alter people's appearance or something. But yeah, so some great Izimba. The opening track is great, and Heaven. I got it for kind of round about what it goes for. I wouldn't say I got it cheap, but I got it at a fair enough price. As I said, I've seen it around a lot, but it's always been overpriced. I mean, I come from a town where there isn't much choice in kind of vinyl, and it's kind of. But I got it for a fair enough price, I think. But grabbed it eventually, you know. I just knew I was holding out. I knew that eventually I would come across one that was reasonably priced. Okay, the next few items I all got at the same location. Not all at the same time, but all over, I think over the last 2 months or so. So it's kind of staggered. All of these cost €5. All of them are pretty much bargains, but I think one in particular, I'll get to that in a second. This I only got this one last week. Booker T and the MGs. Most famous for that song Green, or that track Green Onions. It's an original UK pressing on Stax. This is from 1968. Yeah, that cover is very much of its time. Sexy chicks, 60s, the beach. Yeah, so there's one track in particular. Oh yeah, Soul. Oh, sorry, I forgot. It's called Soul Limbo. Sorry, I forgot to. The title track. Title track is pretty well known. I actually knew it, but I didn't actually know it was by Booker T and the MGs. It's one that I've heard a lot. I've heard it used in a lot of advertisements and on films and stuff. But their version of Eleanor Rigby is really good. Yeah, so please do not pick up. Okay, so the next item also picked up for €5, and this was a complete bargain. The Breeders, that band, but set by Kim Deal and her twin sister, who I just can't think of her name just now. But this is an album which I wasn't even familiar with. This is called Title TK. It's on 4AD. This came out into 2003, and this goes for quite a lot online. I think the cheapest copy online at the moment on Discogs is €70. So I got this for €5. Yeah, I got it in this bookshop, come record shop, which is run by an elderly gentleman. I've mentioned that place before. I've picked up a lot of stuff there in the past, but yeah, so that was a real bargain, and it's a really good album too, and it's one which I have to admit I didn't know about. I kind of when it comes to the Breeders, I'm just familiar with their 90s stuff. I didn't even know they'd released this album in 2003. Yeah, so yeah, quite a good album. Yeah, so for €5, geez, you couldn't go wrong there. Okay, so next pickup, classical album, well, modern classical. Schoenberg, Arnold Schoenberg, early 20th century Austrian avant-garde composer. I'd never see him in the wild, never see his stuff in the wild, so I grabbed this straight away. Also, Stravinsky, Dunbarton Oaks. I always grab Stravinsky, as you'll know, but this Pierre Lunaire by Schoenberg. It's not an opera as such. It's more in the line of Kurt Weill, kind of German or German Austrian in this case, kind of impressionist musical theatre. It's great, like the cover, by the way. It's on a label called Saga, who tend to release a lot of interesting stuff, but their pressings aren't great. The actual pressing of this is quite noisy, and a lot of their pressings tend to be a bit like that. But still, it's two composers who really I'd have no hesitation in grabbing. So there you go. Now the next two items are on an Irish label called Gael Lynn. Have a lot of stuff on that label. Primarily releases kind of Irish traditional music. Now this is another modern classical album. It's by an Irish composer called Saoirse Bodley, and it's very, very rare to find his stuff in the wild. I've actually never seen anything by him anywhere in the wild at all. This is an album which was released in 1980. It's set to the poems by this guy, Brendan Kennelly, and consists of the song by this lady here, Bernadette Greevy, who was an Irish soprano, and John O'Connor, pianist. So it's a girl. It's basically about a girl who gets pregnant, and she tries it out of an abortion, and it kind of ends badly. And there's also another poem called "The Narrow Road to the Deep North," which is about the troubles, the political troubles in Northern Ireland, which were going on at the time. Comes a booklet as well with the words to the poems. Gael Lynn, the early Gael Lynn label had this kind of distinctive red and black label, but this is the one they were using by I think the late 70s, early 80s. So that's a very interesting find, because Saoirse Bodley, just very, very hard to find his stuff in the wild. The next item is also on Gael Lynn. It's from the same year of release, 1980. It's an album of choral songs performed by they're performed by this woman. She's from Ben Costello's neck of the woods, from Limerick. Her name, oh god, I can't pronounce her name because it's in Gaelic. Nora Ní Rin, which in English would be Nora Ryan, but that's her name in Gaelic. But she performs they're basically Irish religious songs dating from medieval times up to the 18th century. They're performed both by her and these monks who are from an abbey called Glenstall here in Ireland. So it's choral music. Very nice. I do like choral music. I'm not at all religious myself, but I mean, I do like, choral music from, Baroque, that kind of, music by Handel, Bach, etc. And this is kind of along those lines. Maybe, well, slightly. It's kind of an Irish take on that kind of choral music. Picked up a lot of classical stuff in charity shops lately. I showed some of them in my previous video, but I think this is one of the more interesting ones I picked up. This is by Shostakovitch, Dmitri Shostakovich, one of the great Russian composers of the 20th century. This is the Leningrad Symphony, one of his more celebrated works, and this is a box set, 2-disc box set. This was composed actually when Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, was being besieged by the Germans. So it was actually that the score was actually smuggled out of Russia, so that it could be performed worldwide during the actual siege itself. But double disc box set, but I picked that up really cheaply. Yeah, so very pleased with that, because it goes for, again, it goes for quite a bit online, this this box set. And it's on an EMI, I think early 70s, I think it was released. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so there's a few more items as well, but I want to leave the video relatively short. I don't want to run on too long, so until next time, thanks very much everybody for watching, and it is Friday, so have a good weekend, but all the best.